Hello there, my name is Ziva, and I run the Ziva RPG Twitch channel, where me and our community, we do a lot of world building, we talk about D&D and tabletop RPGs, and we make sure that our table is welcoming, kind, and inclusive. And I have something very special for you all today. I have a video of an interview that I did with a good friend of mine, Ryan, who is the creator and founder of the Fools, Fires, Fables show over on Twitch. You can find him at the Giant Pianist. I'll have a little tag underneath in the description below. And oh my god, it was so much fun being able to sit down with a fellow content creator and just talk about D&D, talk about streaming, talk about narrative structure, talk about musicals. We talked for an hour and 40 minutes. The interview was only supposed to be an hour long, so we went a little bit over time. But it was just so much fun. I had to share it with you all in its entirety. I'll have timestamps in the description below, and I hope you all enjoy. And lastly, I want to reach out to you all. If you're a content creator on Twitch or on YouTube, anywhere really, if you're passionate about D&D and you want to be on this show and talk with me about how to make this table welcoming, kind, and inclusive, I would love to have you on our show. I just love geeking out about this stuff, and I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions and support whatever projects you are working on at this current moment through my channel. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll have my email in the description below as well, and I hope to see you all soon. That being said, I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I'll see you at the table. There we go. How's it going, Ryan?
Pretty good. Yeah, not bad. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Hanging in there. I have my coffee in me. It is.
Same.
I have 2 lattes already set, ready to go. It's nice. But
Nice.
yeah. Perfect. That was my first time introducing you. Is there anything I missed out in terms of creating of the Fool Fire Fables musician? Anything else we should know about you?
Oh, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm Canadian, so that says everything about my personality.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I work professionally in theater and use that to influence basically everything I do, because you got to be full bore into the Canadian theater scene in order to make it, because it's small.
It is very small. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. What's it like? So, like, do you have like dreams of like going into like the States, into like New York and Broadway, that kind of stuff, or just like you want to stay put? Gotcha.
And for a couple of reasons, it's incredibly difficult,
mm-hmm.
and B, like logistically difficult to get across the border, especially as an artist, and especially for someone like me who's a music director. We're not unionized, right? So actors have equity, or ACTRA, or SAG. For music directors, we might belong to the American Federation of Musicians, but that isn't quite the same union as an actors union, which could help you acquire a visa. It's not really. The other thing is, I like small communities and working with theater that I feel like I can impact change on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love New York as like the theater mecca.
Right.
But Canadian theater has a very different culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had a pretty good career so far, so I know some major players, and it's really difficult to get beyond one degree of separation in Canadian theater, whereas
Right.
the American theater is massive. And I mean, not to discount, there is a massive amount of opportunity down there. Like,
mm-hmm.
you guys actually have a regional theater scene, and we don't. I mean, I could talk about this forever. So,
Right.
like, maybe, but probably not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things too, of like, I have friends who went to like to NYU, went to Tisch to like become a theater, try to make their way into Broadway, and it's that same thing. It's just like you have to know so many people just to get a like audition. You just have to just know so many people. So like I do like that sentiment too, of like that cultural difference between Canadian and New York. Would you say that would be like the biggest difference? Is that kind of like degree of separation? Is that kind of like that's kind of close-knit community?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the difference in scale is also massive. Our theater community industry as an industry is wildly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what I understand of American theater, I'm making bold assumptions from statistics and things that I've heard. Yeah. I have a couple of friends that have worked in the States, but even like the highest caliber of Canadian actor that I know,
mm-hmm.
or know of. The only time they've worked in the States is when a company brings them down. So like there was a production of Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway. That was a Canadian production that was built at the Stratford Festival. And the way it worked was they transplanted the entire production and put it on Broadway. It didn't do very well. But basically they transplanted the whole thing. Same with like a bunch of Soul Pepper stuff, which is a big Toronto Canadian theater company. They transplanted the whole thing down, moved them all as a unit, which is probably how they were able to get across the border.
Right.
But otherwise, it's very uncommon.
Right. Interesting. Gotcha. That's fascinating. Yeah, like, especially, like, I think that's what I truly enjoyed about musical theater when I did it, and, like, just theater in general, is that close-knit community. So it's like,
Definitely.
that's why I never pursued to become an actor or anything of that sort. Like, I never wanted to go to NYU or anything like that. I was like, nope, that just seems very stressful. I do not want to, like, one of the jokes I like to say all the time is that I really wanted to become an engineer for a while. And then I took AP Physics and AP Calculus, like honors style classes. And I did not want to spend 3 hours on a problem and failing. Like, I did not like that whatsoever. So, like, being like, all right, I'm going to audition 50 plus times and then see what happens and get rejected 50 times. Yeah, I don't think my heart could take that. I think personally, like,
Yeah.
So.
And to be honest, as a tall man, because I feel I have the same exact problem, I had one director describe me as a set piece and as a sightline issue.
Wow.
Yeah, because like we can't play our age, right? I'm in my late 20s and all through my 20s, and even as like a late teen, I couldn't play anyone even close to my age because I was bigger than everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is completely fair. I never really thought about that, but yeah, absolutely. Like when I was in high school, I could play roles because I was of my age, but like now I can only play like older like father figures now because of my height.
Are you a baritone too? Because I'm a baritone.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They don't write for baritones anymore.
They don't.
Nope.
It's like one of the. I would love to play Count Frollo. I believe that's the name of the character in Hunchback.
Yeah.
But I need to wait until I'm like in my 60s to play that role. So it's like, cool, love it. Got some time.
I love Hunchback. So good.
I did that show once. I was in ensemble.
You did Hunchback?
I
Really?
did Hunchback. Yeah. So
Holy shit.
local theater did it, and it was killer. It was so much fun. It was such a great show to do, and it was like this big outdoor theater too. So it was like super nice. But like I just remember I wasn't supposed to be in the show because I was directing a show at the same time, and then the choreographer of the show was like, "Hey, we need a male dancer, and everyone else is busy. Do you want to just help me like block this piece?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I helped block this piece for her, and she goes,
"See where this is going."
Yeah, you're gonna be in the show. I don't care. Like you're going to be in it. So I was like, "Cool, love it." So I was like a male dancer for the show, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, that is fun. Yeah, I mean, I don't know of a lot of people that do it because normally, did you guys do it with the 80-person choir?
We were small, so we had it with a 10-person choir.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's massively limiting in terms of production scale. Because how do we find this many people?
Yeah, it's like it is massive. Like the whole choir portion is like staggering. Like especially if you want to like musically direct that. Oh my god, how many sleepless nights would you get? Like trying to.
Oh yeah, and like the choral part
rehearse.
is so hard. But it makes a lot. I mean, I could talk about this forever. So I studied this in my undergrad. The Notre Dame motets are a very specific style of. I don't know if you talked about this in the rehearsal process. They were massively historically important to the development of the musical canon.
Interesting.
Because of the way they treated harmony and the way that they treated the math of the music itself was kind of revolutionary. And because it was sponsored by the church, it had this kind of France versus England, what was called Faburden, or the way that they treated like baseline. Oh, I'm getting really into the weeds here.
No, keep going. I'm loving this. Like hell yes. Like
so because they had money and because they had this physical space, they were able to develop a new set of music and harmony. So we're talking like 1200, 1300, early, kind of right before the Renaissance, pushing out of Gregorian chant. So everything else had been run by the Catholic Church out of Rome with Pope Gregory, which is where Gregorian chant came from. So it was kind of the next major wave, which is where we get kind of our new choral style. So the complications and new, what's the word I'm looking for? New complexity kind of added into the harmony was massively important. So when they were orchestrating the show, like the overture isn't just instrumental; it has a choir in it because it kind of shows that background. But then also using it dramaturgically, if I could ever music direct that show, it would make my brain explode, but in the best possible way.
Well, 100%. I never knew that, and that makes it adds that another layer. Like I think that's one of my favorite things about musical theater. It's like, it can be just, fun. It's like Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's like, Disney movie. But also at the same time, it can be revolutionary, groundbreaking, in so many different ways that we just don't really notice.
Because, it's Alan Menken who did everything Disney, but then the lyricist was Stephen Schwartz.
Yeah.
Who's, he wrote Wicked.
Yeah.
And Pippin. Yeah. Godspell. Massive team.
Yeah. It's it is such a great team up of those two. It's such a good show, and it was so much fun being involved in it too, because the cast that we had we were all close friends, and so everything that goes on in the show, all the tragedies and emotions around, also just being an outcast and things of that sort, being a theater kid. We've all felt that kind of sense before in our past of being an outcast. Is just such it's a very resonating show on every level. Yeah. But anyways, D&D.
Speaking of outcasts.
D&D. We talked a little bit about, in the past of D&D, where it comes from, our origins. Where is your origin in D&D? Where did you catch the bug?
Okay, so I started my first ever foray with it was I built a character. I built Legolas because everybody does. Everyone's first character is Legolas. I had somebody ask if I wanted to play back in 2016. When did 5e come out? 2014.
2014? That sounds about right.
Yes, so I think it would have been 2015, 2016. I think I was still right around the end of my undergrad. And as it always does, scheduling got in the way and nothing ever happened.
Yep.
I remember picking up a digital copy of the Player's Handbook, trying to understand what the fuck was going on without any guidance from Dungeon Master. I built a ranger.
Nice.
Didn't understand anything about it. I had a character sheet. It never happened.
Yep.
And then Critical Role came along, and a friend was like, I've spent a lot of time watching this, and I was like, how long are the episodes? And he went, 5 hours. And I went, what? How many of this was campaign 1 of Critical Role, and he was like, I mean it's really cool. So I didn't watch it until they were just nearing the end, and then I burned through all of campaign 1, all 115 episodes in maybe 2 months, 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah, it was an issue. And so as soon as I was I think that was probably 2017, end of 2017, and then beginning of 2018, I put together kind of a campaign. And that's it. That has been my entire life ever since. Everything I've blacked out, and now I own 2 3D printers. I run a Twitch stream and a Discord community for Dungeons and Dragons, and it's my entire life.
It definitely sneaks up on you. Of
oh my god, it does.
It takes over your life like that. It's just oh shit. Here's what I'm doing now. Cool, love it. Yeah, I feel like we have a very similar kind of upbringing of creating a ranger because we want to be Legolas until we realize being a fighter with a bow is probably better.
I never even got into the stats. The statistics didn't enter my brain until so much later when I realized this is half math. This game is half math.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Half of it is math. I'll save this rant for another time, but I love playing rangers mainly for roleplay purposes. I get they're not optimized, but I feel like rangers as a whole is just a fantastic class just for roleplay purposes. All the different subclasses, very flavorful. But that is so cool.
What's just to trail on that a little bit? What is your take? Because if you've got old school ranger, not Pashes, the old ranger, specifically seems to be built around exploration, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing, which is a pillar of D&D that no one uses.
Right. Yeah.
So what would you do if you're going to build a campaign where a ranger works? Like, would you go back to the grassroots of how they want you to do exploration? You know, what would you do? Because I would love to find a way that the first ranger would work in.
Yeah, I would go full on, like, I would go full, like, I love the Fey Wanderer subclass in Ranger.
Ooh,
and I think, like, stuff
yeah.
like that, being like, oh, I'm from, like, a different plane, or I'm from a different area, and we have to go back, and I don't know if I can get us back. And so we have to go through an area by force to get to our next objective. I think it would be much more of a plot heavy. Like, I would work it into the backstory of, like, okay, you have to go back to your hometown, or you have to do X, Y, and Z. After some time has passed and you don't know if you can do it or can explore it, and you need a guide. So, like, you have a ranger there to help you out as kind of like a park ranger kind of a deal.
That would be pretty cool. I think for me, and I've been saying this for a while, I want to play. I don't think I might want to run it, but I think I would rather play in a campaign, or just like a really short arc in a campaign where encumbrance matters, how much you're fucking carrying matters. Count your ammo. You need to find food. You need to forage. You need to actually do all the things that we as dungeon masters like, nah, it's fucking boring. I'm not doing that. Yeah, I want to do one arc where all of that shit matters. You play by all of the rules.
That would be cool too. Like, I would love to see that be like part of an arc in a campaign. Like, I think that would be really cool, of just being like, all right, so here's like your fantasy tale, and then you go to like the Feywild. Oh, now everything seems very heavy. Like, you have to, like, oh, you're feeling hungry at this point. Like, you don't know what to do with that, and just kind of like work it into the story that way. Because
gritty nature realism.
Yeah, it's like if I was a dungeon master, I feel like I would be pulling my hair out if I did that for a full campaign.
Oh, I know. Same. Nope. No, because to be honest, it's not my most exciting thing. But if you use that to introduce a very specific flavor, and you ban Goodberry,
yes,
you just can't use Goodberry.
Cannot. Like, just I would love to be like, all right, so you go into like this anti-magic force field area. You can't use any magic. You just have to like survive and see what happens. Be kind of cool just for an arc for a few sessions. I mean,
definitely.
Like, speaking as like dungeon master and all that kind of stuff, what is has there been an arc that you've run for a game that you consider to be like your favorite? Like what kind of style of arc, or a twist they've turned onto your players that you just kind of like was just a lot of fun to run? Does that make sense?
Ooh. Yeah, there are a couple. My favorite thing is player buy-in, and not to tease too early, but like I am an agent of chaos as a player, and I do love when things go fully off the rail. I prep a ton. Like, my notes are massive, and the amount that I write is crazy, and like I'll skeleton out a session, but I am a-okay throwing everything out because my world building is based on organizations and NPCs and motivations on kind of a macro level.
Yeah.
So that even if the players like fuck off and go to a different town, like, I know enough organizations and enough people and enough things going on in the world that even if I don't have that town built, I can improv it. But allowing us to, like, you know, create jazz together is my favorite. So the ones that really jump out are when things go just haywire. I had an underground arc sort of foraying into like a dungeon crawl. I wonder if I'm looking at it with beer goggles or like nostalgia goggles, because it was my first campaign. But when I was working, I worked at a major theater company that was a repertory theater company where all of these actors were stationed at a theater for a year. So I was a dungeon master for this campaign. We played like 30 sessions, something like every other week we would play. And my players were all professional actors. One guy was a professional improver. He did the Second City like circuit for years. Like, they were great. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole other conversation there, but there was this whole arc where it felt like even though they were high level, they were level 10, they were in peril the whole time. The adventure had like incredible pacing, and I remember those series of sessions stand out to me because I didn't know necessarily what was going to happen next. I was just throwing wrenches. They picked them up and then used them as like tools in their own machinations. Like, it was like character shaping in the best way. There are a bunch of RP moments. There are two that really stand out. One of the players was from an orc army, and his whole detachment disappeared one day. That was the whole hook for his story. So I was finally able to work it in. He found them, and they had all been turned to glass. And there was this, it was the coolest fucking thing ever, because they were stopped by basilisks and gorgons and medusas, but they were called the Glassmakers because they were a detachment of like an Underdark army that was a bunch of monsters bubbling. It was this whole fucking thing.
So cool.
But my favorite part was it was a turning point for him because he had blamed the dwarves on it the whole time. So they turned them back to flesh, and the orcs were like, we're getting the fuck out of here. And so I remember watching the player go through this decision of, am I going to stay with the party that I've been playing with, or am I going to roll a new character and actually, like, what is the character's motivation at this point? And this player was famous for not making a decision. He would roll a percentile dice and let the dice tell him what he was going to do.
Interesting.
And this was one of the first moments where he went, I need to make a decision. So what he did, he was like, I need to make this cost something. So he gave up a massive magical item to the NPC army and went, I need to stay with them. And it's one of those things where you're like talking about it after. You're like, this can't possibly mean as much as it does to me because it resonates with you personally. Your brain's like, this is real. This happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I love that.
It's the buy-in, man. The buy-in is what gets me.
The buy-in is so cool. And also, too, of a brilliant way to, work in, the disappeared army.
Backstory. Yeah, always. It does half my work for me.
It's it's what a great gift. Oh, man. That's probably what we'll be talking about a little bit, too, is that, as DMs, that kind of, hook is, so important when you're creating a character. It's it just helps out the DM a lot, but also it helps out with your character buy-in, in your own personal attachment. And honestly, I think that's my favorite thing about D&D 2 is that moment where players are like, oh, this is real. I don't know if I should leave the party and roll a new character, or do I stay and kind of end this chapter in my character's life. That's such a cool moment of self-reflection in D&D is one of the coolest experiences.
Yeah, because there is a suspension of disbelief at a point. You're like, I am suspending reality to figure out a reason why we are sticking together.
Yeah.
If you stick with a group of people and every day you get attacked, you're like, maybe we shouldn't hang out anymore. In reality, that's what would happen. But you got to suspend that a little bit. And then it does come to a point where you are forced to make a decision as to are the hooks in my backstory enough to pull this character back to stasis, back to living in a place, if it's even an option to go back to a family or an organization or their life before. How strong is that pull versus the pull to adventure?
That is if I could frame that somewhere, I want that as my DM kind of quote that that's a good mantra to have of having a hook where it's do they get pulled back into stasis or they keep adventuring. That's such a great every DM should strive for their characters to have that. It's such a cool concept and it's such an amazing feeling too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
What about you? Do you have any standout D&D player moments?
For me, I'm trying to think.
It's hard because my brain doesn't categorically store things, so I feel that.
Yeah, it's definitely I remember I was never as a musical theater kid, I was never into improv. I was never. I had friends who were improving, geniuses, and I always felt left out by them. I was improv was never my strong suit. And I remember I had this distinct memory of the person who got me into DM. Their name is Mika. Wonderful person who got me into it. We were talking about my ranger character that I created, because of course I did. And I was I want a familiar. I want a pet river otter named Bud, and that's what I want. And Mika goes, all right, tell me the story of how you two met. And I was like, huh? And she goes, I'll give it to you if it's a good enough story. And I was like, okay. And so I went on like this 10-minute like improv narrative that like I forgot where it was going for a little bit, and then circled back around. I was like a part of a pirate ship and a captain, and went through and the captain pulled me aside, and we went on this like hike through the jungle, and we found like this cave, and the captain told me to like find my deepest desires, and I thought to myself I want to be a part of something, and this otter came to me, and that was my familiar. It was like this whole like 10-minute saga, and she goes, yeah, you can have your familiar, that's a good story. And that was a lot of fun, and just like, you know, being forced to improv like that, and just given that space in a very welcoming environment I don't think I've had before other than D&D, because I feel like improv clubs, like it seems very like intimidating sometimes, at least to me. And so like going into this D&D space and being like, hey, tell a story, we'll hear it, is such a cool feeling. That's one of my favorites. But
If someone were to ask you, okay, describe this in two different ways. Someone asks you what D&D is, but like, you know, they're never going to be into it, they're not going to understand. How do you describe that? Versus someone like one of your friends that's kind of into board games asks you what D&D is, and they're like, you can tell that they're trepidatiously like, I kind of want to play, can you tell me what it is? How do you describe it differently between those two people?
Yeah. I think for
like a coworker asks you the first time, they're like, what is D&D? Like,
Yeah.
what would you say?
I would say like D&D is just a bunch of friends getting together telling a story. I think that would be like, and we all get to play characters. I feel like that's probably like the simplest way to describe it. But if I had a friend of mine who was like, hey, I kind of want to play D&D, what is it about? It's I would say it's a community experience where you get to collaborate with other peoples to tell a shared narrative, all the highs and lows in between, and you get to go on an adventure, not only in world but with this group of people. I think that's probably the best.
I find it really difficult to communicate the scope and scale of how important this game is to me without freaking people out, because they're like, what's D&D? I'm like, it's everything.
Yeah, it's it literally is.
Yeah. I struggle with that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of those things of like, I did not expect D&D to become everything. But here we are on Twitch doing an interview talking about D&D the entire time with people in chat. Also, hi chat. Good to see you all.
There's people here.
There's people here. Hello. Good to see you all. Just talking about D&D. It's remarkable. But you're right. It's like if you were to go up to your coworker and say like, "Oh, what's D&D?" and you're like, "It's everything." You will probably get some strange looks. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
100%.
No, the way I've found any sort of success is if someone seems interested, I'm literally like, it's basically a board game and like collaborative storytelling put together. Like I, as the dungeon master, pose you a problem, you give me a solution, we roll dice to see if it works. And that's like, I just make it as simple as possible to be like, it's really easy. It's not complicated. You'll have a good time. And just like, first one's free, big guy. It's okay. Just come on.
Just come on it. You don't have to do much. It's all good. I got you.
Yeah, it's super safe. You're gonna have a really good time, and then I'll see you in 5 years when you have tattoos based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
Because it'll happen.
Yep, exactly. I'm already playing my first one, so it's gonna happen. You know.
Everyone is. Yeah.
Everyone's
a very
always.
Yes, it's shared experience.
Shared experience. It's definitely everyone creates a ranger. Everyone watches Critical Role first, and then everyone gets a tattoo. I'm pretty sure that's kind of like the starter pack of D&D, right? That sounds about right.
It's one of those things like there was a joke about Tumblr where it's like there are no new users for Tumblr. They opened the doors in 2013 or like 2007. Everyone came in and then they closed them, and then it's just the same people. We're like, we're still here. I feel like D&D is the same, except you get the people that are like the old guard, like a Tyrannius or an Abby, and they're like, I don't watch Critical Role. I just play D&D because they've been doing it forever. I feel like there are two camps for sure.
Oh, 100%. Like it's It's definitely like the ones that like absorb the new content, new media. Also, like I feel like Dimension 20 is getting up into that upper echelon of D&D shows like Critical Role, where like I think that's where I got my original start, probably from Dimension 20, and then moved on to Critical Role. Because like Dimension 20,
It's an
I just
easier entry
love.
point.
It's a great entry point, and I just love that kind of bite-sized kind of like, oh, 10 episode arc, 10 episode season, good 2.5 hour.
I mean, you don't want to
long
watch
episodes.
750 hours of a campaign.
It's
Literally, that's more than The Simpsons, The Sopranos. Like, the only thing that creates more content than Critical Role is like a soap opera.
Yeah.
Because they do a new episode every day that's an hour versus Critical Role that's like, 4.5 hours, 5 hours a week. Like, they passed every other form of media like in a year and a half. Like, it's insane.
yeah, it's so wild. Like it took a literal global pandemic for me to watch Critical Role. Let's be frank with that, because
Yeah.
like I literally had nothing else better to do but watch Critical Role. That was the only thing like on my docket. Now was like I was like, well, I'm stuck inside, got nothing else better to do. Probably just watch Critical Role.
This is also a thing that so you as a streamer who are potentially maybe putting together a campaign to stream, or I don't know how you imagine interacting with D&D and your community. Do you view D&D as Critical Role portrays it differently than D&D as you play it? Like, from a DM's point of view,
Right.
how would you, because like that's the thing that I find fascinating. Could you imagine having to put together a game that is both structured for the players to play and also for like you have to DM a game that is narratively interesting to watch?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think for me, like I had like a home game for a little bit, and then one of my players left for Oxford because it's smart.
Sure. As you do, yeah.
So that kind of put a damper on that. But when I was doing that home game, it was a lot of fun because it was just all like my high school friends coming together and playing it. At the same time, though, like I put like a cap of like, hey, like I have X amount of sessions for this campaign. Like not like amount of sessions, but like I would like for this to be done by the end of the year, ideally. Kind of a deal. It's really hard for me. I don't know if it's just like attention span or whatever it is, but to be like, hey, we're gonna be running a campaign. There's no end date. We'll just kind of see where it goes. Is hard for me, and so I think like that kind of setup of a sort of like a game that's narratively interesting and one for my players like kind of go hand in hand for me, if that makes sense. Of just like I love playing D&D, but if I was in a 3-year long campaign, that's a lot. So it's like I don't know. What about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I just want to peek behind the curtain, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I would love to talk to Brendan Lee Mulligan or Matt Mercer or one of the guys from not Dimension 20, like Ice Cream Sandwich, or because I would be curious to see how transparent they are with their players about the goal of the game. Like, whether they're just like, we're gonna do what we're gonna do, and if the audience likes it, amazing, and if they don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the attitude, or if they talk about like, keeping the pacing up during like a shopping episode,
Yeah.
or being really organized with what you want to do in your turn in combat to keep the pacing going. Because like I have streamed games, like all the Fool's Fire Fable stuff.
Right.
And right from the get-go, I have said, we are not doing this for an audience. We are not trying to put on a game that is interesting to watch. We are trying to put on a game that's interesting to play.
Right.
And I will put in elements for the community, like using channel points to enter NPCs or things like that, in order to put in some viewer engagement and make it so the community enjoys watching.
Yeah.
But for me, it's never about the audience, because it can't be, because we're not professional role players, all of us. We're not professional improvers.
Yeah.
We're just here to have a good time. And if we view it from like wanting to create media that is specifically for an audience, we'll never start, because there's too much barrier for entry. That's not what I'm trying to do. But for the people that are, I find it fascinating, and right? Like, it's
Yeah. Like
so different from the game that we all play.
that is very true. Like, yeah, especially with that perspective too of like these one shots that you've been running on your channel. Everyone should go follow, by the way. It's definitely one of those things of like you're asking community members like, hey, come play D&D with me. So it's like it's very like focused on this one shot to make it like specific and making sure it's not about the audience and like, you know, just playing a game just us. I think is very smart. And I think that's why I'm drawn to that kind of like community too, is that kind of like it's the it's not like a big commitment of just being like, hey, join this campaign. It's much more of like, hey, come play D&D with some friends kind of a deal. And I think adding channel blowing redemptions and one shots too is very smart too. I think like there's this, like I follow a few other people on Twitch that stream campaigns, and it's really hard to engage with like, you know, all right, this is episode 43 of their campaign.
Yeah.
Like people are watching, but no one's like communicating in chat. It's like it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it goes to that kind of point of they're not playing for an audience, they're playing amongst friends. And I think that's where Critical Role got their success too, is that it was a bunch of nerdy ass voice actors playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then they got huge. And so it's like I wonder, like I feel like Dimension 20 started off as kind of like, okay, we're doing this from a production side of things. This is a bunch of College Humor people going into that. Whereas Critical Role was the opposite of like, we're playing with friends, just streaming this, and then it got huge.
I think
weird.
it's also because like I will never begrudge Critical Role for making money.
Oh,
never.
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
Never. But it's also interesting because they're all professional actors. They are all union professional voice actors that have been working and work in LA of all places. They're not like, you know, some actors that are living in Idaho that are trying to make it as a professional actor but also live in Idaho. They're like, no, we are living in the epicenter. We are working actively in the industry. So for them to, if they're going to monetize their hobby, gotta make that money, man. And also, they're I would never ever begrudge them their success. But it's, I find the genre itself fascinating. Because can you think of another piece of media other than maybe like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the lines of genre and improv and preparation are as blurred as they are with Critical Role?
Oh yeah, like, I have no clue. It's, and like you could pick up other genres within D&D, which I think is fascinating. That you could have,
that's my favorite thing.
Like you could have a sci-fi campaign, you could have a high fantasy, you could have a little bit more of that Dark Souls kind of medieval grim kind of fantasy.
Where do you feel like your style lies, like in terms of genre? If you're going to compare it to a genre or a movie or a director, where do you lie?
Oh, I love mythology. Like anything like mythological, like Greek mythology, and like high fantasy probably. Those are like, that's my bread and butter. Like I love talking about mythos, creating pantheons of gods, having heroes' journeys, like going full on Joseph Campbell and shit. Like I love that so much.
In terms of the way that manifests, do you feel like your DMing style, do the games end up looking like what are those movies that came out recently, like not the Odyssey, it was he playing Theseus or Odysseus? It's the dude with the short hair from Avatar.
Oh, yes. Clash of Titans.
Do you know what I'm talking about, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Titans,
Does it
Wrath
end
of Titans?
tonally that way, or does it totally end up like campy Percy Jackson? Like, what is the tone that you feel like you end up at? Because I always think I'm going to end up DMing Lord of the Rings, and I DM a Marvel movie every single time. It's quippy and goofy and fluffy and light because that's me. I don't DM dark successfully at all. Yeah,
like I'm with you on that. Like I think it like the source book that I used to run my campaign was called Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. I highly recommend it. It's so good. And it does a lot of that of like, you know, it's very traditional Greek mythology essentially. Like you start off by hunting a boar and things of that sort, and try to get this boon, like full on hero's journey. But I think for me, like, I love uh taking narratives and like putting a twist on it a little bit of just like what are heroes and like what does it mean to be a hero, which I think mythology does a lot. And so I think I want to start off like, all right, we're gonna do like this very character introspective kind of narrative with your backstory. We're gonna challenge you and like see who you are as a hero, and then 5 minutes later, they're like chaos gremlins and just doing like everything. Like they are the chosen ones, and they're like, stealing from people and things of that sort. And I'm like, honestly, that's totally fine. I am more than happy to run a session like that or a campaign like that, because like, again, it's all up to like the players and the DM and things of that sort. Like, I would love to go into that Lord of the Rings, but like, I am more than happy to go full on Marvel movie and just have it be quippy, chaotic, just and having like a giant battle at the end. Hell yeah, love that.
Yeah. So we talked briefly before we started all of this about chaos versus like a more straight and narrow kind of character. How do you find that has manifested in your characters so far? Do you feel like it's a relationship between you as a player with the dungeon master, or do you feel like it's the kind of stories you like to tell?
Yeah, honestly, I think that leads us into a great next portion, because we've been talking for about 45 minutes about D&D.
Oh shit.
I was like, oh yeah. And like, but also like, I think for me, I always tend to be more of a like a face character, like very much like that lawful good kind of character, someone that like, I love role play scenes and things of that sort where I get to talk and things of that sort. That's why I stream on Twitch, just to hear myself talk. But it's definitely like, I love being that kind of voice of reason, or being the enabler for the chaotic one. If the chaotic one is like, hey, I want to do this, I'm like, yeah, sure, down, I'll come with you. Like, I will never come up with the ideas, but I'll help like engage with it, I think, and those two alignments, we talked a little bit about before we even started stream, about like chaotic characters and things of that sort. I love playing villains in musical theater. I love being the Thénardier. I love being that kind of scumbag character, because it's fun. It gets a laugh. It breaks away from the serious moment. For me, it's so hard in D&D to be a chaotic character. Like, I feel like I'm always like taking away a moment from someone, or I'm gonna do something that like I'm gonna tell a joke or do a bit that's gonna fall flat. Like, there's always that little bit of a fear of it. And I don't know if it's just like a lack of experience in being a chaotic player in D&D, or if it's a there are like there are probably guidelines for how to be a chaotic character. What are your rules for? We talked a little bit about this. You like to be more of a chaotic character, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who I'm playing. I have a couple of characters that I've played that are more ingrained in society, so the way that their character manifests is the power structures have been very good to them, so they respect them. I have a couple of nobles that I really like playing that they like using their status, so they stay in Streamline. They don't make waves in taverns, they don't make waves in shops. They are chaotic in that they'll follow the adventure, they'll follow the fun, they'll follow the story, but lawful in that they will abide by the rules of society.
Yeah.
But like what we did with Disturbances one shot, I also have a couple of characters like Thraxis, who I don't know what happens when I play him, but he's just dumb. It's like he's literally got an intelligence of 7, and he follows the funny. As a rule, he follows the funny, he follows the bit. I love playing yes and like if someone comes up with an idea, I will do whatever I can to help them make sure that idea happens. and he will just forehead sprint at what he thinks is fun or funny.
Yeah.
I do, and I hope. Okay, I'm gonna phrase this way. I hope I have a good read of a room, in that I know when to shut up, and I know if a serious role play moment is going on, if I'm taking part, I am more than happy to toe that line. Or if it's someone else's moment, you bet your ass I'm getting the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
I hope. It's a thing I also worry about. There is a bit of, I mean, I'm Canadian. I'm afraid of taking up too much space. But I think for me it's, and that's why I end up DMing a Marvel movie every time, is
right.
I love to follow the fun and like tease out a bit, like we did with that game. Like it turned, like you yes and always. If Tanner had turned around when Abby said, you know, something about cats, or him being a cat person, and Tanner turned around and went, "No, that's not me." You're like, "Oh, you took the whole air out of the room."
Yeah.
But what makes Tanner a joy to play with is he went, "Yes, and not only yes, but and not only yes, are you correct, but I have a cat suit under my armor."
Yeah.
Like that's the dream, right? Is you don't always have to spike the ball. You can set it for the next person, and if they choose to spike it, it's amazing. And if they choose to set it again and that ball stays in the air, you all hold your breath collectively as we wait for the punchline. It's the best.
It's literally like, yeah, that one shot was so much fun. For those who don't know, right now we're part of a one shot with a few other community members, where we were hired by a toy and tobacco company that was such a good pairing that was tasked to take down Santa Claus, and the characters that we came up with were all so different and chaotic, and like absolutely, like Tanner just being like, yeah, I have a cat suit underneath, this is my life now, like is one of the funniest things I have ever witnessed. And also like Abby's character of Misty, so
a literal
amazing.
child,
an 8-year-old warlock, like one of the funniest, most creative, chaotic characters like I have ever seen. And so like I think you summed it up perfectly when it comes to like chaotic characters, of just like follow the funny. I think that's a good like note to have. And also too of like we talk a lot in D&D about boundaries and things of that sort, and like setting up like that ball of like, all right, like this is great, and like the chaotic characters shouldn't cross any boundaries, and like make sure that like, you know, like it's the social awareness of chaotic characters is some of the best social awareness, I think. Like it's like everyone
the
knows,
good ones,
like
certainly.
the good ones, absolutely. Like just being like, hey, like you create miniatures in your basement, right? And just being like, yeah, honestly, yeah, down, love that. Like I love like when characters can read a room, but also at the same time I'm always terrified of like, am I doing this right, am I doing this justice, kind of a deal.
I think it's also easier to be less precious with your character and other people's characters and feel like you're creating jazz in a one shot, because you're not establishing canon. Everything is new. You're not going to come back. So like I mean, even the idea of gold, me being like, yeah, I don't need physical possessions because I'm never playing this character in this world again.
Yeah.
So we just get to dick around, and it's, as long as you kind of respect the dungeon master's prep. Yeah. And that is always a thing. If the DM, this is an interesting conversation that I will have 10,000 times over. Yeah. If the DM is like, the story is this way, I will sprint as far as I can, like as fast as I can towards the story they have prepped, because I'm like, I want to see what you have made for us.
Yeah,
I do. But what's interesting is I really struggle with this. If they go, this is the story and this is how you're going to play it, I'm instantly like, oh, fuck that and fuck you. No, I'm gonna play it. We're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah,
I will lovingly play your prep. But if you tell me how to play it, my gut, my hackles raise. I'm like, I will jump on the rail. But like, I don't know. I don't have an eloquent sentence for it right now. But how do you feel about the railroad? Like, do you have any philosophies that you abide by when playing or DMing?
Oh, well, 100%. Like, I remember I was a part of a campaign, like, through another Discord.
How dare you?
I know, I'm sorry.
I'm just joking.
Cheating on your community, sorry. But like even before the session 0, I had to drop out of it because like the players and the DM were like, "Oh, we need a healer. Like you need to be the cleric." And I was like if I'm walking into a session with a whole bunch of strangers and people are telling me like, "Hey, you need to be this because of party composition," I'm out. Like that's I hate when people are like, "Hey, you need to play your character this way and this way only." Like it's one thing to have like guidelines and boundaries and things of that sort versus like I need you to do this. Like I need you to play this character this way. I need your character to heal on this turn, especially like, being clerics and all that kind of stuff. I played a few clerics in the past. And while I love the class, sometimes it can be like, "Hey, I need you to heal me now," kind of a deal. Where it's like, I was going to, but now I kind of don't want to because you told me that. Out of spite. But like, I think especially like with DMing, that's like my big thing right now with, on this stream we're building like a world together. And we have like this kind of like idea of BBEG and things of that sort and like story points. But at the same time, I love giving that space for characters to chart their own path. Like, I could get them to point A to point B pretty easily, but that's not the point of D&D for me. The point of D&D is that jazz, is that collaborative storytelling. And if it gets to a point where like I could weave in the BBEG or find creative ways to do it, absolutely, that's totally fine. But I think flexibility in D&D is the most important skill you can have. Like railroading is like detriment to me. Like it's like if the party wants to go shopping for an entire session, more than happy for that. I am. If they're having fun, I am okay with that. If they want to tell like a story, then I could lead them to a story. If they want like realism, sure. But like definitely for me, it's like, part of the DM is like I love setting stuff up, but at the same time it's a collaborative event. Like we talk a lot about in D&D about how the dice is another player at the table. Like there's a literal player, quote unquote, that's just random chance. Like it's hard to railroad when you have a player that's literally random chaotic RNG. Like it's so wild to me.
Anyone that's heard me talk about this knows my guiding principle is that we need to separate the idea of preparation and narrative development from player agency. We often lump those together when talking about railroading, and they are so important to separate because you are allowed to prep a story. You are allowed to prep monologues and scene description and things for your players to do and events. And that's okay. That's not railroading. That is you preparing as the dungeon master, which some DMs don't like to do, but it crosses the border into railroad as soon as that infringes on the way that a player interacts with what you have prepared. Agency is the be all end all for me. And it guides my whole preparatory process. I don't come up with solutions. I just come up with problems because as soon as I come up with a solution for the problem, it's guiding me towards how I imagine them playing with my dollhouse. And that is not what I do.
Right.
Because I don't know if it upsets other people as much as it upsets me, but like the collaborative process is the best part of the game. Why would you ignore that?
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. There was one session I ran for my home game where they had to like infiltrate a church to like gain like this relic, and one of the characters just made like this throwaway line of like, "Oh, the pastor has a skateboard outside their door." I think that's what it was. And I first like envisioned this Count Frollo, just kind of like old man. Then he went from that to immediately being a youth pastor because there was a skateboard outside the door because of a throwaway line. Like it just immediately like I love the collaborative storytelling of like I just love when characters and like PCs just like say something and help world build with you and just be like, "Oh yeah, that's canon, I love that, I'm gonna run with that." Like follow the funny of just being like, "Oh yeah, like definitely I love that so much." Like it's also like I love setting up problems and creating like narratives, but if I wanted to write solutions, I would just write a novel. Like,
Yeah,
that's like
just yeah.
that's it. But
It also makes for more impactful storytelling if you follow the funny. You're like light and fluffy all the time. And then if you find a place of depth or gravitas, or you find something more serious or sad or dark or gritty, as soon as you introduce that, I find it's really effective, because 99% of the time, everyone's making jokes, everything's light, fluffy, and funny. But you walk into a dungeon and you see people like held in stasis, strung up on the walls with veins like creeping into their bodies to like suck their life energy to power this dungeon. Literally a real world thing that I did in one of my games.
Fucking
The players
badass.
were like,
Love it.
what the fuck is going on? Because walking into the dungeon, every single dragonborn they meant is from the Australian outback. It's hilarious. Then they walk into the dungeon and it's a different world.
Yeah.
And it's so effective.
yeah, absolutely. Just like curbing that expectation is always just so much fun as a DM. Like, oh my god, I love it so much. Like, random ambushes, so cool. I'm just
You haven't fought anything in a while. You made the mistake of sleeping.
Yeah,
It's my turn.
It's my turn. Just like, just being like, all right, like that's what I love about doing that kind of like sleep schedule mechanic, just to like give them anxieties of like, all right, roll a perception check, just like in the middle of the night, nothing happens. You don't think, like I love that so much. But yeah, damn, yeah, like holy shit.
I think having the wild and the road not being safe are a major narrative necessity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
It's definitely one of those things too of like I love when I'm DMing to like as like, you know, how do you another sidetrack in here. How do you feel about like, you know, having recaps for your sessions? Do you like to have your players do recaps? Do you like yourself to do the recap? What is your position on recaps at the start of
I talked about this on stream recently, and I have been doing it wrong, to be honest. So I'm a professional sound designer and composer, and the last campaign I ran, we played every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I would compose and create a 4 to 5 minute radio play in the world of the game, summarizing basically what happened in the last session. And I would score it. I would create like underscoring and ambient sound effects. And I would do multiple. Yeah. It was an issue.
No,
so like one of the,
sounds amazing, but continue.
it was really fun, but it took so fucking long. So one of the sessions was they had this huge combat. A ship. I basically just stole the ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal. A ship got stuck and it was being held by 2 earth elementals, and it turns out that the ship was used for very nefarious purposes. So I created this whole radio play using a stone of far speech between a person on the ship and a person on the shipping dispatch, with like sounds of combat in the background, and like, you know, trying to get course corrections and figure out what's happening, just to communicate like there was a major combat. This is perspective from like an organization in the world, and this is the perspective from the people in the boat, but at the same time providing kind of a recap of what had happened in an interesting way. It took me about 4 hours. Like it doesn't take that long, but it takes, you know,
it takes
half a work
chunk.
day.
Yeah.
So what I learned that other people do is they just ask their players to do a recap and then give them an incentive like inspiration die, or, you know, some in-game current. Like, that makes so much more sense. So and then at the beginning I would also do like another recapping, like briefly, this is where we are, this is, you know, what day of the month it is, this is kind of what you had been asked to do. But I find it interesting because what you say impacts what the players think is important.
Yeah.
And you can tell what players think is important if they do the recaps. Like, how do you do it? How do you find that works? Like, exactly.
For me, I usually do. It depends on, like, you know, if it's a weekly session kind of a deal, and like, you know, if we miss a week or something like that, players are just gonna forget everything that happens. And so like when it's like a regular schedule and things of that sort, I'll have players recap. Maybe because it's good for, as a DM, it's kind of like data analysis for me. It's kind of like data collecting, of just being like, okay, so when I set up that sneaky person in the bar that's like, you know, very shady looking, they did not pick up on that. But they did hear about this like stone temple that I just kind of made up as a throwaway line. And they want to explore that. Good to know. Love that. Like, That stuff. It's good information for me to know of like, okay, here's what they like. Here's like, it helps me build future sessions and weave in the story that way. Also, just one less thing for me to do of doing like a recap kind of a deal. But holy shit, like a whole radio announcer kind of recap sounds fucking amazing though. Like that is like next level.
Quite a collection. What I started doing, and the reason I went to the radio place was we were playing on Zoom, so we would record the whole session in case anyone couldn't make it.
Nice.
And the first 3 or 4, I think, I actually made a recap, editing together a supercut of the entire session to like find the key moments.
Nice.
And a game is like 4 hours long, so then I would have to watch the entire 4-hour game again to find the moments of like import. No, and then I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah,
that is just too long.
That is too long. Like I will agree with you on that. Like,
that was not great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, it's definitely one of those things of, as a DM too, I find myself always thinking that I found the most efficient way to do something, creating a battle map or creating NPCs, and then just talking with anyone else, they found a more efficient way. Like, I think that's the greatest thing about being a DM for me, like talking with other DMs like you and like everyone else in the community, is that like we're all working together to like figure out what is the best way. And I think that is the coolest thing about it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's nice because we're all nerds.
Yeah.
And we're nerds in different ways. So like a lot of my efficiencies and streamlining comes from maybe like a tech perspective of like how to make tech negotiate in a way that I find useful and doesn't always work, or from like a storytelling point of view or an improv point of view. Like those are things that I find my strengths in. But then there are other like software engineers who are dungeon masters who have made these incredible Excel sheets where you plug in the things you need. Like I don't know if you're on the Waldo RPG train yet, but it's amazing. And people like those nerds who are amazing at software development, they're like, oh yeah, no, if you need an NPC for anything, you just plug in these numbers and I have an entire character sheet custom spat out for you.
It's like, it's so wild. Like it's, yeah, like that one, there was like someone who created a OneNote that's called like the DM Bible, that's like pages upon pages of like, you know, outlining like, here's how you create a pantheon, here's NPC generators, here's battle maps, music. There's like a whole separate tab for like character art. It's like one of the coolest like things. Like it's definitely, yeah, we love nerds who like
nerds. Yeah.
streamline everything. It's amazing. I love that. A little bit of a check-in here. So we are past an hour.
Cool.
I told you it would be about an hour. Do you want to create a character today, or do you want to just call it there and do it for part 2 in the future?
I'm happy to follow your lead. Whatever you want to do. If you have other things you want to do on the stream, I'm happy to pop back on at another point and do a build. Or like, I got nothing but free time. I'm not teaching for another week and a half. So
hell yeah. Honestly,
yeah,
I got another 30 minutes. Do you want to crank out a character real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Why not? Sure. Let's just crank out a character. Let me open up this thing. Also, everyone in chat, I love you all so much. You all are so amazing. I've been seeing everything, and Tim brought up when we were talking about like a mixture of genres and things of that sort, and that ebb and flow, professional wrestling, and I fully agree with that. Like I love that. That's a great comparison. Abby is talking about Rangers. I love you all so much. Perfect. Awesome. Cool. Let's go over here.
So the big question is, oh, look at that cute overlay. It looks great.
Thank you.
Are we sticking this in the world that you've been building with the stream? Is that the idea?
No, honestly, I was just gonna randomize it. Just kind of do that. Perfect. Lovely. Cool. I was just gonna I just kind of want to talk. We talked a little bit about that kind of like chaotic character and things of that sort. So I'll just kind of let you kind of take the lead a little bit on this one of just like, you know,
Sure.
What character do you want to create today? Is there anything like, you know, is there a class that you want to explore a little bit more? I'm just going to turn on all the features, just cause. and just kind of go from there. Does that sound interesting to you?
Totally.
Awesome.
I'm happy to frame this as like a how we build normally.
Love it.
Do you follow class? Do you follow background? Do you follow story? What way do you normally start with a character? Because I have experienced, I've done all three of those things in the past.
Yeah, I think for me, I lean more into class more than anything else. Or if I just if I'm just like, hanging out and I'm just like, I'm kind of bored, I want to make a character, then I'll just go with class. But I have like, ooh, you know what? Like, I'm trying to think of a like for a one shot, I created a Zilham Ironbonk, who's like a 7-year-old trickster kind of thief guild kind of a dude. And I was like, I kind of want to play that, like, and like just making like a shadow sorcerer because of that. Or like, I really want to create Legolas, and so I really decided to go for Ranger. Like it's going off of archetype if I have like that idea in mind, but more often than not, I would go for class. What about you?
Okay, that makes sense. It depends. Same deal. If it's a one shot, I will find either a gimmick or a build that I want to try mechanically. But if it's for a campaign, I'll find a story that I want to tell over time.
Yeah.
So you tell me, are we going to do a one shot build today, or are we going to build a character that's interesting over time for a campaign?
I would love to do a one-shot build, because like,
Okay.
like I was thinking about this too, of like if I have more people on the show and things of that sort, making one-shot characters, maybe we could use that for a one-shot in the future.
Totally.
So let's do a full-on one-shot. So in terms of archetypes, we've talked about what archetypes do you usually like to go for? There was the himbo.
Yep.
With
yep.
T.
Thraxus is definitely a himbo. His brother is literally named Himothy Bojangles, who is by definition a himbo.
Yep.
I play barbarians and bards the most. Like, of the big campaign characters I've played, 3 of them are bards, 2 of them are barbarians, and then I've got a fighter, artificer, gunslinger.
Damn.
And talk about broken fucking builds, man. Holy shit. I've never done more damage. And then I have a blood hunter that was in Curse of Strahd. Those are kind of the biggest characters that I've played lengthwise.
Nice.
And in terms of like archetypes, they are all drastically different. Like drastically different. They all, I don't know if any of them share a characteristic. One characteristic that I have found that I don't enjoy playing is the Blood Hunter has a -2 charisma. And in a game centered around role-playing and talking to people, in which I really enjoy role-playing and talking to people, I really struggle to play low charisma characters. Because if a DM asks for a charisma roll, you're like, okay, I'm going to fail. It's not going to go well. Mathematically speaking, I shouldn't be good at this, but I think as a human, I'm okay at it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Those things I find difficult. Let's do something new. Do you wanna build like what would a? Okay, we're gonna tease something. My next one shot that I'm planning to run is themed, in which I want you to recreate a character from popular media into a Dungeons and Dragons character.
Amazing. I love that.
Do you want to try something like that to like see if we can? We won't have to come up with a backstory necessarily. Then we'll just have to try and find a way mechanically it'll work.
Yep. Down.
Okay.
Absolutely. So cool. Yeah. Ooh.
Okay. So then, let's make. Are you a Harry Potter person?
Oh yeah.
Let's make Hagrid.
Let's fucking make Hagrid. I love it. Okay.
Gotta be Goliath, right? Half giant?
Yeah. Goliath, or I was thinking Furbolg too, based on like, but I think
half cow person. Yeah.
Half cow person. Let's go Goliath. All right, I like it. Wizard.
Here's the question: is he a wizard, or is he a sorcerer that has like a feat of like magic initiate?
Ooh.
He didn't graduate.
Yeah,
What do you
he
think?
didn't graduate.
I mean, I could take a low level wizard. Like maybe he's just capped at level 3 because that's the year he got expelled.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Ooh. Also, too, like he does a lot of like bestial stuff, so I could see him being part druid too, like a
Ooh.
wizard druid multi-class kind
Yep.
of a deal.
I could totally see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's definitely not animal handling.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to start off there? Or just
Let's do that. Yep.
cool. Let's go.
Those are not synergistic builds.
They are
do
not
share.
whatsoever.
Nope.
Let's go to level 3 just for shits and giggles, just for fun. What level is this one shot gonna be?
Ooh. Let's say level 5. Let's say a smart level 5. I've found in my experience going higher than that, you're like, we can't get this below 5 hours.
Yeah.
We can't.
Yeah.
It'll take forever.
Yep, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 3 levels in druid, 2 levels in wizard. Did that sound?
I'm into that. Yeah.
That sound about right? That makes sense. Because I feel like plus with druids being wise, I feel like Hagrid's pretty wise.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Animal handling. What's another proficiency for Hagrid?
What are the options? Because he's strong as fuck. Is there? I don't think druids are proficient in athletics.
Yeah. Arcana, insight, medicine, nature, perception, religion, survival.
Probably nature or survival, I would think. But nature's like I can identify all these plants. I mean, and he was the Care of Magical Creatures professor, so he probably is intelligent enough to have gone and studied at Hogwarts.
Right. Ooh.
But like, if you can walk through the Forbidden Forest, oh god, this is gonna show my nerds so hard.
Let's do
If
it.
you can walk through the Forbidden Forest and not have an issue, you're probably proficient in survival, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with that. Also, we have a few self-care checks, so quick little stretch here and there, everyone.
Oh, that's such a good channel feature. I just have
so
bright
nice.
lights flashing in my eyes.
It's so good. It just reminds me to stretch, honestly, because like being being
posture.
tall
Yeah.
dudes, man, like oh man, sitting at a desk all day, my upper middle back is like fucked.
There's just so much more back. I have so many more sections of back.
There's so much more back. I don't think something more relatable has been said on this channel than that for me.
Yeah.
We just have so much more back. It's
So much more back.
all right. What druid circle is Hagrid?
That's a good question. My gut says Circle of the Shepherd, but what are the options again?
Oh yeah, it's weird that the pop-down menu is not showing up on stream, but
Not even a little bit. Yeah.
we have Circle of Dreams,
Yeah.
Circle of Stars,
Yep.
Circle of Wildlife, Circle of the Land with the billions of the different land options: Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, Underdark. Circle of the Moon, Circle of the Shepherd, Circle of Spores. Those ones I have.
Because Shepherd is the one where you're able to like summon animals and stuff, right?
Yeah. Like I think Circle of the Shepherd makes the most sense.
Because like Circle of the Land, you could argue either forest or mountain.
Yeah.
Because like his giant tribe is from the mountains and he lives near the Forbidden Forest, but I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Because like Speech of the Woods, you get to converse with beasts and fae.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's
Like-
definitely it.
You can call forth nature spirits to influence the world around you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
There's a unicorn spirit. Yeah, of course. Like done.
Done.
That is perfect. And then let's add in our class. Let's do some wizard shit. Arcane Tradition. Now, like, I'm not. So I'll be real. Watched all the movies of Harry Potter. Read up. Oh hi. Hello. God, love the crab rave. It's so good. Love it so much. What's going, singer? Good morning. Damn. We've been streaming for 3 months now. That's weird.
Good for you.
Goddamn, that's weird. I love it. Hello. Good to see you, singer. Thank you for popping in. But seen all the movies, read up to book 4, have not finished the series.
Oh Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
I'm a fake nerd.
Oh no, it's fair. It's fair.
But
I still fall asleep listening to the audiobooks, and that's been going on for about 20 years.
nice.
So I don't think there's a piece of media that I know better. I'm not gonna lie, it's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of arc and tradition, what do you think Hagrid would be good at?
It's a good question.
Because I'm trying to
In
think.
terms of like the way his magic actually manifests, what do we see him do? We see him put a pig's tail on Dudley. We see him make a boat row. This is book stuff shit.
Yeah.
He makes the
Here.
boat row. Like evocation or transmutation,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. I like that. No, let's go transmutation. Yeah, transmutation sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah, and you get minor alchemy, which I feel like is up Hagrid's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I love it. Amazing. Perfect. Yeah, I like this already. Cool. All right. How do you like to do ability scores? What is your...
In actual games, I do rolled because I as a player think that's the most fun. In the one shots I've been doing for the Fables, I do standard array just so it's super fair. But I'm happy to do either. I mean, we can roll them if you want.
I'm down to roll, of course.
Yeah.
Always down. Yeah, I usually like to go for rolled or standard array as well. Point buy is hard for me. But when I did my I was super generous with my players with my homebrew not the homebrew, the campaign that I ran, because there was a lot of first timers, and so the standard roll 4d6 and drop the lowest one. I did that for everyone, and then if there was, I told them to do it instead of 6 times, 7 times, and then drop the lowest one of that bunch. So
Oh
that
yeah,
way-
those will give them some god tier stats.
yeah, like literal god tier stats, but also too like first time players getting like a dump stat is always hard. So I was like, I'll be generous. Like we'll give you god tier stats just for shits and giggles. But
Yeah, new players have not found the fun in failure yet.
right.
Yeah. 14, that's pretty good.
14. I love the anime. That is 3
Oh.
6s.
Oh shit, there we go.
Ooh. There we go. 13.
Oh my god, this is just really good.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. There's his dex.
Goddamn. Yeah, that's his dex right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god. These
Not
are great
bad.
stats.
Not bad. That is some good stats. I love the animated dice so much.
Okay, hear me out. Instead of building him mechanically sound, he is far stronger and more constitutional. Like I would actually put his 18 in
100%.
con.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I am more than down for that. 7 dexterity.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yep. What other stats do you want to put him in?
I think we have to give him a 13 in intelligence because otherwise he can't multi-class. And then I would put the 15 in wisdom,
Yep.
which is a shame because I think he's also massively strong. So like maybe 14 in strength, 12 in charisma. I don't. What do you think on those?
Yeah, I think that's sound. I think that makes sense. Like, yeah, him being a giant Goliath person. This is gonna be a level 5 with like a plus. Is it? Wait. I think he has a 20 Constitution.
Hell yeah!
He has a 19.
So many hit points. Yeah.
So many hit points for level 5 Druid Wizard. Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah. A +4 to Constitution and -2 to Dexterity. Ooh boy. But makes sense.
He's gonna get hit a lot, but he'll be fine.
I mean, if you're handling dragon eggs and things of that sort and hatching baby dragons, yeah. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Of just like 15 wisdom, 14 strength. He is a strong boy, but he is very wise as well. So I would give him that. And then, yeah, I kind of hate multi-classing restrictions. Like, how do you feel about them?
Well, my big thing for multi-classing is always follow the story, because the number of times I've had people be like, I've come up with a really unique build for this story. I really think it works. I'm like, oh yeah, what is it? You go, oh, it's a Hex or Locked-In. You're like, what the fuck did you just say? They're like, yeah, so if I get one short rest, I can end the planet. I was like, oh, okay, no, we're not doing that. Yeah, like, give me a good story. Like, if you're a paladin and you stumble across a magic item that you want to take, a level in Hexblade, sure, if it makes story-wise sense, but like, I don't love min-maxing in the game, because it just means we're at the table for a different reason.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Of like, I think for me, role playing is a lot of fun. At the same time, I love rolling the dice. I love the munchy crunchy kind of stuff. But at the same time, it could ruin fun quickly. Like min-maxing. Like, it's definitely one of those things of like, you have to be super careful with it. And like, if it works in the story, sure. But like, yeah, like you said, on a short rest I can end the planet. Like, that's a lot. Like,
Spirit has a lot to do, though. Like, the spirit in which you go about it. If you come up being like, if you are a player who engages in roleplay, engages in story, and you're like a good player all around, but you also just love cranking damage output.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I will probably say yes to most things.
Right.
But if you're there as a combative player that's like antagonistic as player versus DM, it will be a harder sell.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of those things of calling her out here a little bit. Nisivas was in a campaign where she played a College of Eloquence bard, and was like with a gnome, and so it's like the lowest she could roll on charisma checks was like a 21. Like, it was like something dumb like that. Like, it's something incredibly broken. But Nis is such a good role player. Like, I love watching her play because she interacts with the world and things of that sort. But if you were just like, don't even try DM to make me roll a charisma check, then that sucks the fun right out of it. Like, at least put an effort into role playing, even though you know you're going to win. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Cool. Awesome. Background.
It's so hard because we don't know what his background is. We know as a kid he grew up with his dad.
Yeah.
He didn't have much connection with his giant culture. And then we know he got expelled. What are the... Let me pull up D&D background options.
There's Folk Hero, Hermit, Outlander might be the closest.
Ooh, Outlander could be close.
That one again.
I mean, if we want to think of his background as like his time at Hogwarts, he could even be like a sage.
Yeah.
As a Hogwarts student.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he does become a professor.
Yeah, so we could give him like proficiency in Arcana or Nature if those are options.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Characteristics, for proficiency in Arcana and History. Yeah, that just makes sense. Also, we can give him more languages too, which I feel like would be good for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Draconic?
Oh, yeah, Draconic, or I would do Sylvan, like the Fey language, either or.
I think he does already get Sylvan because of Shepherd.
Oh, perfect.
So even better. I'm going to give him Elvish, because why not?
Yep.
Cool. Yes, I love it so much. Reading chat. Yes, Singer, we are building Hagrid. We are. I should probably change the name so then we could just put Hagrid. God, does Hagrid have a last name? Do we ever find out?
No, if he's like Madonna.
Yeah, it's fair. He does.
Wait,
he does.
Rubius. No. Rubius Hagrid. Hagrid is his last name.
Oh, okay, gotcha. There we go.
Almost embarrassed myself there.
Ooh, Tyrannus brings up a good point about centaurs.
I think they speak Sylvan.
Oh, okay, yes,
I
Sylvan.
think, but I'm not. They might speak like classic D&D. They speak
Common.
Centaur,
Um,
Elvish, and Sylvan.
okay.
Yeah.
What was the first name again? I'm terrible.
Rubeus, Rubeus. Oh man, I can't believe I thought it just had one name. How is this so embarrassing for me?
There you go. No, it's not like we're on stream or anything. Don't worry about it. It's not like it's being broadcast.
No.
Not
Definitely.
whatsoever. All right, starting equipment and things of that sort. Probably just a quarterstaff. I feel like it doesn't have any other weapons. Doesn't pull out a sword at any point.
Just pull out a sword. I would even argue for like a reflavored club as his umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Smart. Yes. 100%. Done. I'll give him a wooden shield just in giggles, and then do a club. Druidic focus. There's sprig of mistletoe, totem, wooden staff. You want. What do you think his druidic focus would be?
Sprig of mistletoe. Oh man. Is a flute an option? Like a little wooden flute?
It's D&D, of course. Like, we can make it whatever.
Yeah, because he's got like I don't know if it's in the book, but it's in the movie when they first run to go talk to him about like before they go into like Fluffy and the whole dungeon arc. He's playing like a little wooden recorder.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
well,
Also,
definitely give him
Abby, how dare I am a Gryffindor. Get fucked. How dare you? That is so hurtful. I am not a Hufflepuff. I'm just Canadian.
just like immediate backlash from that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Single called it though. Definitely Gryffindor vibes for sure. But I am
Definitely,
the Hufflepuff though.
Fair.
For sure.
No shade. I'm a Canadian Gryffindor, which
Yeah.
does feel
Which
like an
does-
American Hufflepuff.
You could confuse those two.
You
Quite
can confuse the
easily.
two. Yeah.
100%.
That's very funny. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It's
like how
fucked. Just
An American Ravenclaw is a Canadian Slytherin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. Yeah. We'll just kind of put on stuff here. Shield, why not? That's pretty much it. Like, in terms of like notes and stuff like that, how in depth do you like to go when you're creating a character?
I do 0.
Yep, same.
Yeah. Especially because as like an actor, as a trained actor, the big
trained
thing
actor.
is like, your motivation. I do find it sometimes useful to be like to write down flaws because then I can use that as like, I want to do what makes the most sense, but sometimes the flaws give you kind of a totem to be like, this is his flaw. I have a character like my gunslinger is one of the nobles that I play, and his big flaw is if you insult him, he won't kill you. He will salt your fields. He will ruin not only your life, but the life of all progeny after you. Like, he is a vindictive motherfucker. Like, it is that's his major flaw is he does not tolerate an insult to his character.
Right.
And so I wrote that down, and there was a little altercation where I was like, oh fuck no, he's not going to stand for this, and literally like did everything he can to ruin this NPC's career because he's like, that's the story.
That's the
so
story.
Normally I don't write anything down, but for him I found that quite useful. I also don't use alignment. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of person either. Like, I don't really go for alignment that much. I use it just like kind of like narratively speaking. I'm like, I like playing lawful good characters. Are they always lawful good? No, but it's definitely, yeah, I like that. Of just like, it really depends on like the character you're trying to create in terms of like flaws and stuff like that. I don't really write any stuff down. I like to just kind of leave it up to the table, and then kind of, if there's anything that sticks out to me, I'll put it down. But like otherwise, I don't really. It's like I'm glad that they put it into the player's handbook to like do that, just to kind of like help with the creative process. But like you can see my character like page. I have like 20 different characters that I've created just for fun. like I'm not gonna do that for every single character.
I do find it a useful hook for someone new. Like if they're new to the game, I mean, it is kind of. I have had new players be like, "What the fuck is the difference between an ideal and a bond?" And I literally go, "I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure."
Honestly, no clue.
Yeah. One is like values and morals, and the other is ties to organizations or other people. I think. I'm not positive on that.
Yeah, not super positive on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am the exact same way. All right, I think that does it. Is there any other parts of like the character creation process that you like to do?
For me, I mean, this is what I ask for my players: is find a reason. If I'm doing a one shot, find a reason to be in this moment in time. And then if I'm doing a campaign, be like, find an organization or a way to enmesh yourself in the world, or give me a detailed backstory using some of the world that I give you. Like I like to send out either a one sheet kind of delineating the world, or have like a strong session 0 where I give them some lore, so that they can put together a backstory that I can then use to kind of help them enmesh themselves in the world, because it helps with the buy-in instantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I love sending out primers and things of that sort, or just being like, hey, here's the world, have fun with it. One of the things that I love doing, we talk about like DMing a little bit, one of my favorite things that I like to do is like one-on-one one-shots of just being like a session 0, just me and the player. When I did the campaign that I ran, I did it with my friend, and we just basically chit-chatted for 2-3 hours, me being an NPC essentially, them being a character, and just kind of like setting them up for the campaign. And I just love that kind of like, hey, here's a primer, where do you fit in the world? All right, cool, let's do a little one shot, let's do like a few an hour or 2 session just to have fun and figure out your backstory, figure out where those flaws, and that's kind of like where I find most flaws, bonds, ideals come from, is during those times. But yeah,
I've only done one-on-one session, and it was a downtime thing. And I literally put together, because he had this whole thing he wanted to do in downtime. I was like, we can't really do that expeditiously with the rest of the people at the table, so we did like a one-on-one, and it was really cool. I would definitely do it again. It's a good idea as a session 0. I mean, even if you're not doing like full roleplay scenes, just meet with your player and be like, this is kind of the game, especially if they're new, this is the game, this is some things to think about, help them build a character sheet, help them, you know, kind of work themselves into the world. I also am totally into like explaining very little, and then have the game kind of unfold itself to them as like a new player, mechanically speaking. Like, you don't have to bog them down in what every single skill does. You're just like, here are the things you need to know. I'm going to ask you to roll the d20 and add something. It's sorted alphabetically. You find this thing, you explain a little bit about combat and like their armor class and movement. But like, yeah, I don't have to do, definitely less is more when they're new.
Absolutely. It's definitely like, less is more. I like that a lot, of just being like, hey, here's my character, and just kind of like, I think that's the best thing about D&D, and especially with dice at the table too, of just being like, all right, like, let's just roll some dice, and of just being like, oh, like you failed this charisma check or something like that. That kind of adds to your character a little bit, of just being like, it kind of helps build that background. And it's just so much fun. Like, I love, like, when I did that session 0 for my friend, he walked in with a character idea and left with like a new evolved version of that character. I was like, I did not expect my character to go that way, but I kind of like it, and I kind of dig it, and just gonna keep running with it. Like,
always goes back to like a collaborative spirit. Let's do this together. Let's find a thing that works for both of us, or a thing that we both took part in creating.
I love that. That's perfect.
Cool. Thanks, Eva. This was super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it there, because that we have our character. This has been so much fun. Like, we last time when I was on your show, like I left being like I could talk to Ryan for like hours upon hours about D&D, and here we are doing it again. I would love to do this again because it's so much fun. Like your outlook on it resonates with me in terms of making sure everyone's having fun at the table first and foremost, but also at the same time just understanding the importance of the collaborative aspect of it. And I think that's something that I truly admire, and that it's like it's clear with the Full Five Fables podcast and the show, just how that rings true for everyone in the community. Like it's just everyone's just like, hey, we're here to be collaborative, and it's so much fun to see blossom.
I think it gets as close as you can to the actual spirit of the game for me, for sure. Like that's the game for me. That's the game.
Absolutely. Any last final thoughts about character creation, or any words of wisdom for DMs or anything like that before we end? I'm actually going to go back to this.
I don't think so. I think everything just always goes back to communication.
Yep.
Always. Like, communicate, be transparent, be as open and open-hearted as you can. Mm-hmm. But that's not just the game, that's life. Like,
yeah,
we would all do so much better just having a little more transparency. That's it.
Yeah.
Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Eve. I really appreciate it.
Of
that was super fun.
Where can people find you? Where? Plug your shit before you leave.
Giant Pianist on Twitch. The Ryan Cowell. My government name is my moniker on the internet if you want to hang out on TikTok. I'm really terrible at Instagram and Twitter and anything else social. I don't post anywhere. I'm really bad at it. But yeah, we're always looking for more community members and more friends, and that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eva.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, everyone. I'll just end it here. Like, we'll like, I'll just plug my shit too, and then we'll sign off. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all, Ryan, for being such an amazing guest and being along for this ride. Like, it's so much fun. It's so much fun talking about D&D. I could do it for literally, we've been doing it for an hour and 40 minutes. And it feels like no time has passed. But here are my socials. Here is my Twitter. Trying to get my Twitter following up, because apparently, like, that's how you get to know people in the D&D space, is through Twitter, or TikTok nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. I'll be live Saturday in 2 days. Hopefully, gonna finish up this Brilliant Diamond Nuzlocke. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I greatly appreciate you all. Thank you again, Ryan. And
thank you.
I will see you all around. Bye, everyone. Bye. There's the end credits. Look at that. Looks amazing. Love it.
So cute.
Ah, look at that. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Awesome. See y'all later.